I wanted to come on here live. I'm Lisa G, and welcome to my 100th podcast party. First of all, thank you for being here. You are the reason that I do what I do. I wanted to bring on some special guests, but I was having some epic tech failure, so I thought I'd try again and share a little backstory on why I launched my podcast, WholeCEO. I personally have had to power up my pivot many times. My life as an entrepreneur has been a bumpy road. And that's why I want to bring you these episodes every week. So if you guys can see me and hear me okay this time, leave a comment. Had some epic tech failures before, but I'll be coming back every week with more fun. It's really not about me and how the pandemic has been hard for me. I had to pivot. I'm grateful for the adversity because that's how diamonds are made. Even though the whole pandemic came suddenly on my birthday on March 15th in 2020, I want to inspire all of you to keep going like I kept going. So I want to encourage you to have resilience and grit too, just like I've had to have it. So let me know if you guys are hearing me in the comments or if you're watching me on the replay. This is so important now that our mental health and physical health has taken such a hit during COVID. So if you're following me, drop some comments. Where are you tuning in from? And let me know if you've had to pivot too in your life. So now I'd like to welcome my very special first guest. She's a heart-centered love and dating coach, helping women date successfully to attract life partner and live happily ever after. She's a master coach in spiritual life coaching and brings a unique approach to self-empowering healing that has been clinically proven to help you achieve the greatest amount of self-help improvement in the shortest period of time. My best friend, Jackie Sabrin, who's always been there for me. Welcome, Jackie.
Yay! Thank you so much and congratulations on your 100th episode. I am so happy that you're doing this because it is so important to celebrate. One of the things with pivoting is that we do not celebrate enough. As a culture, we don't celebrate enough. I mean, the pandemic and then just being able to pivot at all, that deserves a big celebration. So I think that I'm so glad that you're doing this because it just reinforces that celebrations bring us joy and they revitalize us and they give us excitement. And I think we really need to do it more. And I loved your 6 tips. That was awesome. I mean,
thank you.
Kind of checked off all the boxes of what I was going to share, but
no, I want you to share. I know we've known each other for so long and I've always been following in your footsteps and really just, even when I did my first DVD, the skinny jeans workout, I was petrified to be on camera. So I had to bring you with me as my co-star. So I know you're a pivot expert. So what you got? Let's do it.
So I love this idea that we have to learn to pivot. And I think it can be really hard for a lot of people because we get so attached to an outcome. And when we don't get the outcome, what we work so hard to get, like, hey, I was doing a launch. I was launching a whole new program. I'd invested a lot of time and money and had everything teed up. And literally the day I was doing the webinar for the big launch, people were watching the news because we were in the middle of the beginning of the pandemic. And it took all the wind out of my sail. And so I really understand that. So there was disappointment. But one of the things that I found that has been so helpful and instrumental in my growth is, first of all, the growth mindset of a lifetime. That's something that you just have to take on. If you have that growth mindset for your lifetime, you will do so much better. And then just detaching from outcomes, because the outcome that I was attached to was, of course, having the new clients, the windfall of cash, all the things that come from the success of a launch. And that doesn't happen. You have to learn to accept things much more quickly. When we have a attachment to an outcome, we're really attached. We want that. And when it doesn't happen, we can suffer severe disappointment. And in that disappointment, we can lose our focus, lose our way, lose our belief in ourselves, become not feeling confident, low self-esteem, all those things can happen. But if we learn to detach all along the way, knowing that there's no guarantee that anything is going to be, there's no certainty. We all have this neurotic need to, and feeling like we have to have certainty, but certainty doesn't exist. And that's playing in a field of, of probability, like it's probably going to happen. But the evolution is in the field of potentiality, in the field of possibility. And in that field, you have to learn to detach. You have to learn that this may not work out the way I want, but then something else can come and replace it. And so the sooner that we detach from outcomes, the easier it gets, the more fun it is, and the more successful we can be, because we don't have that heavy energy of disappointment. Once we go into that disappointment, we kind of put on our blinders and we don't really see the other opportunities in the pivot, which is where opportunities are. That's why I love the word pivot, because as soon as you do, there's another opportunity. So we have to just get past that disappointment, let go of the discouragement, and keep going and see where, what else can I do in this moment? What is the silver lining here?
The silver lining. I love that. I love the way you always talk about 3 solutions for every problem too, instead of being attached to the outcome of how we were hoping. What is some tips about that?
No, I love that you just reminded me about the 3 solutions. So I just like to look at life as there's 3 solutions to every problem. What are the 3 solutions that I can come up with right now? Choose one, pivot, and then see how that works. If it's not the right one, then come up with 3 more, because eventually you're just making decisions. The part of being a leader and being unstoppable is being able to make decisions quickly. When we doubt ourselves and we don't decide, we start to doubt our competency, our confidence goes down. So I think that just make a decision, make it fast as you can, if you need to, in terms of the pivot, and then you'll be moving yourself forward instead of stalling out and getting stuck in, and then that creates a whole another set of problems. So yeah.
Well, thank you for your awesome rock star tips. I know you have a huge following on YouTube, so and I know you have some great programs going on right now. Do you want to tell the audience a little bit more, if I've missed anything about you that you can share?
Well, I do have a YouTube channel called Engaged at Any Age, where I have over 300 training videos to help women to unpack some of their emotional baggage and get into healthy relationships. And I recently opened my free Facebook group, The Ultimate Woman, on Facebook with Jackie Sabrin. And if you want to get to know me, you can binge on the videos, you can join my Facebook group. And I'm just going to be promoting this whole conversation because I know you've got other experts coming on my social media. So I'm looking forward to hearing from the other people you have and hearing what they have to say about being unstoppable and pivoting. Thank you, Lisa, so much for having me.
Thanks, Jackie. Next up, we've got Rina and Rebecca. Super excited here. This is like a very special podcast for me. So I want to know if you guys are tuning in, if you're learning from these rock stars, if you have any questions for our experts, drop them in and we'll be sure to get back to them. And I want to talk to you next about some very special guests, Rina Gupta and Rebecca Cullen, my sister. Career Interrupted is her new book. Rina founded Mom Relaunch with her passion for inclusion. They've written this book for anyone who's been undervalued, laid off, furloughed, hit a career rut, or struggled to re-enter the workforce. They want to inspire anyone and everyone to know that work-life harmony is within your reach. My sister, Rebecca Cullen, is a screenwriter, author, blogger, essayist, published in the LA Times, Plutopia, Medium. Career Interrupted is her second book. I'd love to welcome you guys next to the podcast.
Hi. Great to be here, and congratulations, sis.
I'm so happy to have you guys here. I want to talk about pivot with you and how can we have the power to pivot. And I love how we can swap the word failure with learning and have a more balanced life.
Absolutely. So these are some of the fundamentals in my own life, like certain things that I don't have the term failure in my dictionary at all. I have replaced it with learning. So whenever something happens, it's okay, it's happened. And I heard Jackie saying that we, as a culture, we don't celebrate. And I come from a culture where we celebrate everything. Every time there is something or the other going on. So celebration is inbuilt in us. every time we go and we have a very crazy thing that we do with our home also. My daughter, ever since she was born, we celebrate her monthly birthdays. Now she's
I
15,
love
so
that.
every so
That's so great.
we find a reason to find happiness in every little things. And coming from a background and culture which we mentioned, and Rebecca and I talk a lot about how I have brought in my Eastern culture and some spirituality and talk to her and bring in and the blending things that happen in our book. That's really amazing that we were able to bring in. So yeah, not only just this, but I have like a lot of like three things as my things to do as well. Anything happens, everybody knows it's three things coming out of mom.
Well,
So
I loved your crew. I was at one of your online book launches, and you have like family and family and family and family. It's wonderful how you celebrate everything. And
yeah.
do you guys want to address the power to pivot for all of the moms that have been relaunching back into the workforce or
Mhm.
furloughed and all those other things?
Yeah, and Rebecca, feel free to jump in. But I have been running Mom Relaunch for almost 3 years. And before starting Mom Relaunch, I have been giving opportunities to women in our program, in my companies, and given the flexibility, given the ability to work remote, given the ability for them to do their job with the passion that they bring in, I have found that this talent pool is productive, accountable, and loyal. These are the three things that I always look for in whenever I look for having productive and effective people in our team. So I converted
Wonderful.
that. So I converted that into a program called Mom Relaunch, and in that I have seen over and over again that there are talent pool that are not being given the right opportunity. So we are giving that opportunity to them. And our focus in Mom Relaunch is not only just the job skills, the training and things that are given provided by any company, but we focus on how we can give them confidence through hands-on experience, bring in their communication, help them speak up. All these, I call it as the life skills and work skills. So work life balances, that's how we differentiate in our, not like hard skill and soft skills when people are talking about them, but those are life skills that starts with confidence, which working women, when they leave their job, that's the first thing they lose. So we have created this program, and we have talked a lot about some of these things in the book as well. So
Awesome.
pivoting, we make it easy as a process.
I love that.
Once you create a process, everything is doable. So
The
Rebecca, feel
process, I
free to.
love that. And you have the framework in your book. Your book
Yeah,
is amazing. So where can
thank you.
people find this book?
Careerinterrupted.net. They can go and find it there, and or they can just go to Amazon. But careerinterrupted.net, they can see a few other things. We have workshops coming in, so love to share that.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Well,
and I
I
just
want
wanted to also chime in my 2 cents, which is first of all, congratulations, Lisa.
Yeah,
I'm so
oh, thank you.
I
Thank
was
you.
amazed that she started up this podcast, but then when she told me she was almost up to 100 episodes, I was like, wow. I mean, I watched most of them, but I didn't realize in such a short time. It's pretty mind blowing and inspiring. So thank
Thank
you.
you.
And I just wanted to say a quick word about when we were kind of structuring the book. We talked about we wanted to have it in sort of three buckets, which was realize, reinvent, relaunch. But instead
mhm,
of reinvent, we we were like, it's not really reinventing. You're not becoming a different person, but it's reinvest. You're reinvesting and you're like leaning into your talent, into your skill, into your support community. And that's really part of relaunching is first you've got to reinvest in yourself. So it's been a huge pivot in my life, having taken a massive career break to sort of step out and raise children. And it is intimidating to come back, and you really do need a support community to lean into. You need that sort of infrastructure there, which we're trying to provide people with this book. I think we've done a pretty darn good job of it. So if I do
Oh, I love it. I love the book, and I'm so happy to be having a little part of it myself and be included in the health and wellness aspect. And I love the three-legged stool. What is that
yeah,
exactly?
yeah, that
it's
is like sort of having a framework for balancing, for stepping back and going, is my life in balance? I've got career, I've got, work over here, I've got friends and family, and then there's wellness, which is like, if that leg of your stool is not in balance, your whole life is out of whack because you don't feel
100%.
healthy. And that's where Lisa came into our book. So it's really this concept of having this work-life harmony, having your health, having, your dream career. Like, what is your dream career? If you're not pursuing it, let's talk about how you can get there.
Well, I love the pivots that I've seen you make personally, both you, Jackie, all my life. Just look up to you guys, and I see the power of pivot, and you've always been there for me, and I've watched you pivot and grow from being a mom to the Stratosphere launch. So only good things for you guys in the book. I'm so excited to be a part of the launch. And also, is there any final words that anybody wants to leave us before we bring in our next esteemed guest?
I'm good. Thank you. I'm really honored to be part of it.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for having us. And of course, we have a lot of things we can talk about, but have a framework, have a plan, an action plan that you can follow, whether it is your work, whether it is your life. And then once you have that action plan, and be yourself accountable for.
Well, those are good things. I love the
Mhm.
idea that you're leaving us with a framework.
Yeah.
And in the back of the book, the little chart. So get
Yeah.
the book, you guys. I'd
Thank
love to
you.
welcome next another mentor of mine. I'm so amazed to have all of you guys here on the screen. He's a psychotherapist, expert in human development, author, president of Global Human Development, Inc., Unified Science of Love Project. I want to jump right in with Dr. Stefan Deutsch. Welcome. You're
I
muted.
had to unmute
Oh, I'm so happy you unmuted. We can't talk if you're muted.
because
Welcome. Thank
very
you.
often I don't unmute.
Well, I'm so
I
happy
just
to have
thought,
your words, and I love the Love Project. And how does the relationship that we have with ourselves stop us from being unstoppable?
glad that you asked that question. But first, I just want to say I'm already learning from Jackie and Rina and Rebecca. So thank you for your wisdom. And I've also learned a lot from you, Lisa. So
Oh,
thank
thank
you.
you.
There is this thing called love, and most of science has kind of put it aside. It's kind of a romantic notion, and you keep hearing and seeing in movies and songs and stuff. Uh, our eyes met across the room, or I love at first sight kind of stuff. So science has been very wary of even wary, I think, rather than weary, both, of looking at this theme, this subject. Even though when they go home, all the scientists, psychologists, etc., they're dealing with it. They're dealing with the lack of love or whatever it is that is in their life, in their relationship, especially relationship with themselves. So here is the good news. It turns out, and we're talking about not just my research and 30 years of clinical work and clinical trials and things, but we're talking about Fredrickson's research, Luby's research regarding the hippocampus, cancer survival rates, um, uh, the love response, which is similar to the relaxation response, our immune system, our telomeres, aging. All of these things really have to do with love. Once we understand that love is nourishment like air, food, and water. And I was always curious about, why are we so desperate for love? Why are we chasing? What are we chasing? What is this all about? Well, the romantic part is pretty clear, right? That has to do with procreation. That we have an energy that starts at around puberty, and we need to mate. That's something the species requires. So, but it didn't seem to answer, the question I was looking for. And then we have something we say, mother's love nourishes, but we don't mean it really in the same sense as we do mother's milk or nourishes. And Again, it turns out, I'll make it short. It turns out that it does. It does. It nourishes the hippocampus, the vagal nerve. Like I said, cancer survival rates 40% higher if you're living in a loving community. And it has implications that it's nourishment because it gives us permission to love ourselves. That's kind of, for a large segment of society, it's a little bit of a dirty word: self love, egotistical, selfish, whatever. And we confuse it. Uh, but when we're hungry and we're thirsty, we go and take care of it. We become self sufficient with nourishments. Parents teach a child to be self sufficient when it comes to nourishing themselves. If love is nourishment, which is pretty clear now that it is, then we have to teach a child and teach adults how to nourish themselves. Because imagine, if we're talking about grit and resilience and pivoting and all of these things, imagine a person who's starving. Imagine a person who's dehydrated or is not getting enough oxygen. How would they pivot? How would they, uh, where would the energy come from? And so
Right.
this is fundamental. We're doing now a global educational campaign to really debunk the myths around love, that it has anything to do with romance, attraction, desire, sex, all of that stuff. Because what it is, it's nourishment. And because we don't know how to nourish ourselves, we look for everyone else around us. We're constantly looking for nice people to be respectful and kind and considerate and patient and accepting and appreciative, and so on and so forth, because we don't do a good job being that way with ourselves. We don't
Right.
do a good job being our own best friend. So
I
that
know.
is
That's
basically the
important.
theory
Yeah.
right there.
The theory is being your own best friend, because Jackie speaks about this too. And I've learned so much from both of you guys. And even since this pandemic, and recently my car got wrecked and I was just really down about like one thing after another. And I started putting back the reminders that I already knew to love myself 3 times a day in my phone. And it's life changing when you get back to focusing on that you have to depend on yourself and love yourself. And I have to love myself even when I'm a perfectionist and I'm finding fault in everybody else or finding fault in myself. So I've learned so much from your teachings of how can we live a more stress-free life? Isn't that what it's all about?
Well, all of it, right? Again, if you're not getting enough food and water, you're going to be stressed out. You're going to be anxious. You're going to be angry. You're going to be depressed. You may turn to addictive behaviors in order to soothe your pain and frustration. When we don't have enough love in our life because we're depending on others, who at their best are conditional, that's the way we're trained, and we need love unconditionally. So we
Right.
need to learn to be our unconditional source and then let people be people. They
I
make
love that.
mistakes, they hurt our feelings, and
Yeah.
once we love ourselves, we can just let them know that hurt.
Well, thank you for this wisdom bomb. I just really think that you guys should be taking notes from all of this. Obviously, we'll be sending out the recording, but think about taking out your phone and putting a memo in there to love yourself. It's so important. How important is that, Jackie, too? I know you agree. So
It's
where can people find you, Stefan, before I go back to
You
Jackie?
can
I
you
think
can
you need
find
to
us
know.
on love-decoded.com, and that's a landing page for the global educational campaign about love being nourishment. And
Oh.
yeah,
Lovedecoded.com. I love that. Thank you. I just was going to ask Jackie if she had anything to chime in about self-love, because she taught me that many years ago when I needed it the most.
Well, it all starts within. Everybody's looking externally to find, as Stefan said, to find their source of nourishment, but it really has to come from within. That's where our true power is, and that's how we can really power up, is to learn how to, self-parent ourselves, love ourselves. Protect our boundaries is a big part of self-love, and once we do that, we can become so much more whole, and we have so much more to give others when we give to ourselves first.
just to add to that, to kind of complete that thought, once people understand that it's nourishment, it's no different than going to the refrigerator and getting something to eat when you're hungry, then they have permission to behave that way. And there's a difference between healthy self-love and unhealthy, because people can be selfish, egotistical when they think nobody loves them, and they say, well, heck with the world, I will take care of myself, and it goes to an extreme. So healthy self-love includes loving others unconditionally. It includes that. That's where we take it, to learn how to love ourselves and others unconditionally. So yeah.
Well, thank you for that distinction. Is anything else anybody on our esteemed panel here wants to say about being unstoppable and the power of pivoting before we end this amazing broadcast?
Well, the only thing I can add to this is what Dr. Stefan and Jackie is talking about is what we grew up learning, because that's part of the spiritual and the cultural thing that we have learned. Unconditional love, and making sure that you respect yourself and give yourself that permission to fail, permission to enjoy, permission to be who you are. And it's such a big part of our culture that we feel that it's just how it should be. And when we come back and look at other things, why it's not happening. So for us, we have to unlearn and relearn and all that. So it's fun. It's fun, but yeah, it's great to be in part of
Yeah.
hearing the same things again.
Well,
A-
thank you.
Another thing about unconditional love is that a lot of people actually believe it's not possible. It's not
Mhm.
possible to love unconditionally. And my advice to them is that Dorothy had to step on the yellow brick road before she could get home. And so if that's not your goal, if that's not your vision, of course you don't get there. And you're better off being on that yellow brick road, working towards being unconditional. uh, and it doesn't mean you're a doormat, because a lot of people also confuse that with, I have to love her or him even though they misbehave. No, you just have to tell them that you're unhappy or hurt in a loving way. So a lot has to do with the way we communicate, because that's the only thing people can, by the way, listen to. They can't listen to criticism.
Right.
We can't be honest with people if it's not coming from a loving place. It has to come so that they feel loved. Then they can listen to us. That engages the hippocampus. Otherwise, everything has to do with our amygdala. Everything sounds like a amygdala hijack, like we're cave people and somebody's going to knock us over the head with their baton.
Well, thank you for that distinction on communication styles, because it is true. I've learned this firsthand about not wanting to put people on the defense and communicating in a loving way. As Jackie has taught me too, about when you're triggered can be a difficult project, but worthy and worthwhile to take a breath first and find a loving way to communicate and still not let your boundaries get stomped all over.
Yeah. Yeah,
Well,
boundaries is a very important concept, but again, if they're applied from an unloving place, a place of hurt, it's going to make the other person feel hurt, and then what you have is a break in the relationship. So whatever we do, it has to come from a loving place. People will respond to that.
oh, well, what a wonderful note to end this podcast on. Thank you so much, Jackie Sabrin, Rina Gupta, Rebecca Cullen, Stefan Deutsch. Of course, we're going to be sending out your podcast today. We sent out a bunch of them, and I will see you soon. Thanks for coming, everybody. Leave us comments.
Thank
Nice to
you.
meet you. Very
Bye.
nice
Thanks
to
so
meet
much.
you.
Nice to meet
Bye bye.
everyone.